Atheists, agnostics, and all secular people just won an awesome victory in court on an issue that honestly should have been settled a long time ago. This should have never been an issue in the first place. A guy named Barry Hazle is an atheist who spent a year behind bars for a drug charge, and then he was released on parole. And as part of his parole, he had to go to a drug recovery program or risk being locked up again. So if he doesn't show up for his drug recovery program, they would lock him up. Now, Barry was fine with that idea. Okay, he actually wanted to commit to stop using drugs, but he said he wanted to commit to a secular recovery. Well, come to find out, the state of California forced him into a 12-step program. For those of you who don't know, those are very God-heavy programs. In fact, a couple of the steps just flat out mention God. Now, they, of course, whenever we bring this up, they respond by saying, yeah, but God, you can use it as a metaphor. So, like, give your life over to a higher power. Give your addiction over to a higher power. They say it could be whatever you want it to be, so it's not even really about God. But that also kind of disregards the history of it, because it was overtly Christian when it was created and then when it was first used. So now, just in modern society, they've softened the strict definition of the word God, but it's still religious. It has, gigantic religious undertones. So Hazle showed up to the program. He bit his lip, and he said, look, I'm going to tough it out because I don't want to go back to jail. And it violated his beliefs, but he did it nonetheless. And they ended up, get this, throwing him back in jail anyway, even though he kept going to the 12-step program, because while he was there, he was, quote, passive-aggressive. So they said, that violates your parole, and now we're putting you back in jail. So he spent 100 days in jail. And then after that, we fast forward to today, and a court just ruled that he's getting $2 million because the state essentially locked him up for being an atheist. They did. Stop and think about it, okay? They tell you when you're released on parole, either we're mandating you to go to this religious program, or we're going to put you back in jail. And the dude even went to the program anyway, but they locked him up anyway. But they did give him that option, either this religious thing or jail. You can't do that. We have a separation of church and state. The Establishment Clause says the government cannot establish a religion. It cannot favor any religion over another religion or religion over non-religion. Well, that's exactly what they did. The guy's punishment was you have to go to this religious-like class. So the judge says you can't do that. You can't force somebody to go to this thing that violates their beliefs at threat of going to jail if they don't follow through with it. That's exactly what the Constitution forbids. So again, he sued. He got $2 million as a result of this because they threw him in jail for 100 days for basically being an atheist and having this thing violate his beliefs, but he was forced to go to it anyway. I think they're right, man. Now, I think, honestly, you could have a reasonable conversation and a reasonable disagreement about the exact dollar amount he should have gotten. I think it's fair to say, some people will say, well, that's a little steep, maybe should have got less than that. That's fine, you could hold that opinion, that's fine. Some people might say, hey, you should get more. Whatever, to each their own, we could have a discussion about that and get into the specifics. But overall, it's definitely the right thing that the court did, and what they're doing here is they're setting a precedent. You can't do this anymore. If somebody says, hey, get me secular recovery programs, okay? I'm fine. You want to give me an ultimatum, go to rehab or go to jail? Fine, but you have to make it secular. You can't make it religious. And that's the right precedent to set. Because in all seriousness, the government shouldn't be involved in any way with religious 12-step programs because it's the government, and the government needs to stay out of religion. So it shouldn't force those things in any way, shape, or form. So this is definitely a step in the right direction. And hopefully we go further down this road where eventually they realize, no, enough with these 12-step programs completely. The government should totally step away from them. And the final thing I'll say is this. People don't know this, but those programs have such a low success rate. They're not actually based on science and empiricism. People make that mistake. They think that all rehab centers are created equal. Wrong. Some rehab centers are actually secular-based and they're based on medicine. Others are not. Others are kind of like scams, kind of like ways to get people's money and try to help them, but not use actual verified ways where we know you're going to be able to get off substances. They just have the 12-step program. Follow this and then maybe you'll be okay and maybe you won't. Most of the time, they're not okay. So it's not even, honestly, if you really want to get into the medical perspective of this, those places should come with warnings, okay? Because that's not actual, you're not actually doing science. You're not actually helping them. It's empirically not true that you're helping them. Okay, so it should be, there should be FDA warnings. These places have not been FDA approved, and it's kind of like the gay repairing therapy or whatever. No, but that doesn't work. It's not real. It's fake. They pretend like, oh, no, we're like psychologists and psychiatrists. No, you're not. You're trying to get people to stop being gay, which is not fucking possible. Well, the same thing, if you set up a fake clinic or a fake medicinal thing where you say, we help people stop taking drugs even though we have a 3% success rate, well, but that's not what you do. You're not successful at what you do. It's like me selling a car that has no wheels, and I say, no, it has wheels, but it doesn't have wheels. No, we help the people that come here. No, you don't. Some of them, through sheer force of will, get through it, but most people fail. And it's not their fault, it's your fault. So those are questionable in any way. But again, in terms of this story here, I'm very happy that it got settled the way it did and that Barry Hazle got some justice.